During the meeting, the boss gave a couple of soft coughs. Joanne and I both handed our drinks over at the same time. One was a bland mug of lukewarm plain water, the other a chilled fizzy drink. The boss lazily lifted his eyelids and took Joanne's drink. The HR manager stared at their hands, brushing against each other in an intimate way, and fell into deep thought for a long time. It wasn't until the meeting ended that he asked me to meet him in his office. Boss and Joanne were together for 8 years, as you saw. There's a real chance they'll get back together now. Going to Nanjing may be a promotion, but it's still a long way off. We really don't dare get on the boss's bad side, so you're the only one who can be transferred this time. I swallowed the bitterness and said, okay. After that, I sent the boss a message, let's get divorced. 1. I returned to my workstation and slumped wearily into my chair. The HR manager's words echoed in my mind. I never even saw Xiaoyin's resume before she was hired. It wasn't until I searched the university forum later that I found out they had been passionately in love for 8 years. Now she can just waltz into the boss's office whenever she wants. Did you see that just now? Boss took the water glass Xiaoyin had been drinking from and took a sip himself. How is that any different from an indirect kiss? Thinking about this, my chest felt tight, as if stuffed with a heavy wad of cotton, stuck halfway, unable to go up or down. As I was staring at the transfer contract on the desk, hesitating, a coworker tapped the tabletop and softly reminded me, Mr. Pei wants you to come to his office. I replied, okay, put the unsigned contract in the drawer, reached the top floor. Just as I was about to knock, Pei Su grabbed my wrist and pulled me into his arms. A cool cedar scent enveloped me. He rested his chin against my forehead, his voice soft and tender. It's probably because the projects under your charge are too much of a headache. I just transferred 10 million to you. Why don't you go out and unwind a bit? Before I could answer, Pei Su said casually on my behalf, you've always wanted to go to Iceland to see the northern lights. You can take this chance to rest. Let Xiaoyin take over the project you've been following all this time. I shoved him away abruptly. She looked straight at Pei Su. He was dressed as usual in a well-tailored dark suit, with one button at his shirt collar casually undone. He gave off an air of aloof, effortless restraint. Seeing that my expression was still dark, Pei Su's smile faded as he tried to reason with me. The rumors at the company are against Xiaoyin, saying she got in through connections. If she can land this project, it'll help her establish herself in the company. I let out a bitter laugh. You know how hard it was to land this project. Don't you know how long it's been since I last had a full night's sleep? And now that we're almost done, you want me to give it to her? At this moment, I could already picture it. The meeting had just ended, and someone was in the break room trash-talking me. What a joke, reaching way above her station. It's hilarious, with Xiaoyin there. Does the boss really think he'd even bother taking her water? Throwing yourself at people and trying to curry favor. Does she even know what her own worth is? I was suddenly overwhelmed by a wave of hurt and grievance. When I spoke again, I couldn't help but let my voice break with tears. Seriously, let's get divorced. Even I think now that you and Xiaoyin are the real couple. He saw me with red-rimmed eyes. Pei Su, who had just been about to get a little impatient, suddenly froze too. Pei Su looked down at her from above, and but before he could finish, the lounge door was pushed open. Xiaoyin sauntered in gracefully, stretching lazily as she said, Pei Su, not bad. You even remembered that I'm a light sleeper. You changed the curtains to heavy blackout ones and even got me a pair of headphones. I'll give you that. You do have a conscience. Her eyes met mine, and she froze mid-step, saying apologetically, did I interrupt you too? I'm leaving now. Xiaoyin gave me a flattering smile. She grabbed her bag and was about to leave. Just as she reached the door, she suddenly remembered something and turned to smile at Pei Su. Oh, by the way, He said he's been under a lot of pressure lately and keeps insisting we all get together for a meal to unwind. It's raining outside. Can I hitch a ride with you? Pei Su didn't answer. He looked at me, said in a low voice, you know him, we've been close since college. It was just a dinner. After taking a deep breath, he said softly again, I'll explain everything when I get home tonight, okay? If you're sleepy, go ahead and sleep first. I'll remind Aunt Wong to warm you up a glass of milk. I lowered my eyes. In my peripheral vision, I could see Xiaoyin's haughty demeanor and the challenge in her eyes. Thinking back on it now, no matter how much of a scene I made, Pei Su would always brush it off with a casual, we're in the past now, my lawful wife is you. Then I thought of that transfer contract again. I dug my nails into my palm and forced myself to stay calm. I'll wait for you. After all, we still need to talk things through about the divorce. 3. My answer was a long, drawn-out silence. It wasn't until I looked up that I saw Pei Su had already gone out with Xiaoyin. I could only faintly hear Xiaoyin's playful laughter. Didn't expect your wife to be such a little green tea. Seriously, look at her. Doesn't it break your heart? Pei Su's expression remained cool and indifferent, his face blank. I've already explained this countless times. We broke up peacefully because there was no feeling between us. There's no chance of getting back together. I have no idea what she's getting jealous over. The rest of the words vanished the moment the elevator doors closed. I gave a wry, self-mocking smile. What I once thought was the perfect marriage turned out to be nothing more than a joke. I didn't hesitate any longer. I went back to my desk. I briskly signed my name on the transfer contract. Look on the bright side. Although Nanjing was miles away, it was much closer to home. Then I'd also have time to spend with my parents properly, for it was pouring rain. Pei Su had arranged for a driver, but the car was parked a long way off, because he had said he was worried that if our marriage were made public, rumors and gossip would work against me. After all, I'm just a somewhat attractive small-town overachiever. No matter how you look at it, I don't seem like someone who could end up on the same household register as a blue-blooded young master like Pei Su. President Pei hired a chef. The one from that restaurant in Italy you said was delicious. President Pei brought the whole chef team over. The driver pulled over and reminded me, "Please enjoy your meal. The new Hermes item will be delivered soon." I froze. A deep sense of helplessness washed over me. He's always like this. It almost seems like he's very kind to me, but then again, it almost seems like he treats me terribly. Just as I was lost in thought, Pei Su's call came through. After I answered, I realized it was probably a misdial. Someone on the other end was sighing and said with unmistakable regret, "Pei Su, even now, seeing you sitting together with Xiaoyin still leaves me feeling pretty bitter about it. Back then, you two were so in love. 8 years. How many 8-year stretches does a person get in a lifetime, and then you just called it quits? You had no idea. When you and that Zhou Anxia got married, we even told Xiaoyin that if you wanted to crash the wedding and steal the bride, we'd all back you up." My breath hitched. So it turns out the hostility I felt whenever I was with brother Pei Su wasn't just my imagination. They had never liked me. And then I heard Pei Su let out a helpless laugh. "Back off. What are you trying to steal a wedding for? Zhou and I really have no spark left. 8 years is a long time. We've become more like family. Only family can stay together for a lifetime." Zhou snorted and cut him off impatiently. "And you can guarantee you'll never get tired of that bland, boring wallflower. So why aren't you home with her tonight? Admit it. Pei Su, you're just caught up in the novelty of it all. Look again in 8 years. No, you'll probably be bored in 3. A long silence followed. All that remained was the heavy sound of Pei Su's breathing. He didn't object. I also breathed a sigh of relief. Luckily, I've already decided to leave. Sunk costs should not factor into major decisions. It's not too late to cut your losses. 5. Late at night, Pei Su walked in just as I had finished organizing the divorce papers. "Pei Su, my apologies. Chairman Pei has had a bit too much to drink," the driver said respectfully as he settled him onto the sofa. Everyone drank quite heavily and ended up staying at the hotel. Only Chairman Pei insisted on coming home to be with his wife, but the rain was too heavy, and it ended up delaying us on the road. I glanced at Pei Su. He was lounging lazily on the sofa. His eyes were pitch black, and the drunken haze had given his features a slightly disheveled look. Right then, his gaze was unfocused as he looked at me like a bewitching spirit, and said, "Honey, come here." The driver tactfully slipped out and closed the door behind him, just as I let out a breath and was about to head into the kitchen to make some hangover soup. I heard Pei Su mumble sleepily and call out instinctively, "Xiaoyin, Yinin." Plink, the spoon clattered to the floor. It shattered into pieces. Aunt Wang heard the noise and hurried out, flusteredly picking up the broken pieces and trying to comfort me. "Please don't be angry. 8 years of being in love just means some old habits linger without us realizing it. In the end, the one he married home was still you, wasn't it? The fact that he went to such lengths to win your heart back then is proof enough that, sir, the one he loves is you." I didn't argue, because I knew it in my heart. I've had enough of this kind of life. Within this year, no matter what Pei Su and I were doing, Xiaoyin's call would instantly summon us back. Today, my car got rear-ended. Tomorrow, I'll be stalked by some creep. It wasn't until 2 months ago, when Pei Su had her stay by his side, that he finally felt at ease. Those little things, tiny as sesame seeds, were enough to drive someone to the brink of collapse. From this day on, I don't want to wrong myself anymore. 6. I don't want to see Pei Su ever again. I don't even want to talk it through properly anymore. So while Aunt Wang was making hangover soup, I took the opportunity. I packed up all the luxury items Pei Su had given me, stuffing them into 18 large suitcases. I hired a truck. I left this home. 7. I booked a presidential suite at a hotel near the company. I planned to stay here until my transfer. One side. Made up my mind. Even waiting one more minute felt unbearably long, so I arrived at the company early, and after placing the divorce papers on Pei Su's desk, she immediately found the HR manager to ask when they could leave at the earliest. He was reviewing the documents when suddenly, he heard someone outside calling for help. We exchanged a glance. We rushed out and realized it was Xiaoyin who had fainted. Everyone panicked and had no idea what to do. Then I remembered Pei Su had mentioned that she has low blood sugar. I was just digging through my bag for some juice, ready to give it to her when Pei Su rushed over in a hurry. Without a word, he shoved me aside and said coldly, "Get lost." He was incredibly strong. I stumbled a few steps, but still couldn't keep my balance. My calf struck the corner of the table, and blood gushed out, but Pei Su didn't see it. He only asked sharply, "Did you call 120? After getting a positive response, he gently patted Xiaoyin on the shoulder. Only after receiving a faint response did his tense body finally relax. He took the glucose tablets from the assistant again and placed them in Xiaoyin's mouth. 5 minutes later, Xiaoyin slowly came to. The ambulance arrived too. Pei Su stood up and said calmly, "I knew you had this old habit. I've kept glucose tablets on me all these years." It wasn't until the two of them had left the company. Pei Su didn't even spare me a glance. I took a photo of my injured calf and sent it to Pei Su. I took another leave and went to the hospital alone. After getting the wound treated, I turned on my phone. I saw that Pei Su had transferred 10 million yuan to me. How could you be so careless? Make sure to use the best medicine. I still have something urgent to take care of, so I can't stay with you for now. I stared at the countless zeros in my bank account balance. I nodded obediently and said, "Okay." 8. The HR manager told me that as soon as the contract for this project I'm working on is signed, I can leave. Immediately, I calmed down completely and said, "Thank you." I headed straight back to my desk to check the final wrap-up of the project. I barely got any sleep all night. It was only then that I finally got all those plans organized, when I happily reached out to the client. But then I heard the other party's secretary say, with evident confusion, "The contract was signed yesterday." In an instant, I broke out in a cold sweat, and my mind went completely blank. "What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?" the secretary said, baffled. "Mr. Pei personally brought people over to sign it. Although the final closing part wasn't as perfect as the earlier proposal, its merits outweigh its flaws. So, in order to, bang, a small party popper went off inside the company." What followed was applause from Pei Su's secretary. "Congratulations to Xiaoyin for landing the big deal, Mr. Pei said everyone's bonus will be doubled." Xiaoyin was surrounded by a crowd, her face flushed as she accepted the congratulations. I kept a stern expression. I stormed into Pei Su's office. 9. Pei Su had just arrived too. He was lounging back on the sofa, exhausted, idly pressing at his brow. When he opened his eyes and saw it was me, he gave a helpless smile, his voice hoarse. "I knew you'd come. Sorry. After signing the contract yesterday afternoon, we threw a celebration banquet for Xiaoyin and were up until dawn. Did you sleep okay by yourself?" I glanced at the divorce agreement on the table, still untouched. He looked away and asked coldly, "Why did you give my project to Xiaoyin? I don't care how she got into the company by bending the rules, but now she's hurting my interests." "And Xia," Pei Su interrupted wearily, frowning, "am I short on money? You came all the way here to question me over a bonus of just a few 100,000. I told you, this is to help Xiaoyin get a solid foothold." Seeing me tremble all over with anger, only then did he say, as if giving in, "All right, once she's stronger and can stand on her own, I'll transfer her away. I remember there's an opening at the company in Nanjing. When the time comes, I'll transfer Xiaoyin there. Please don't fight with me over these little things, okay? I'm tired too." Pei Su slowly raised his wrist. He glanced at the time. He strolled leisurely over to the desk. His eyes landed on the divorce agreement and suddenly came to a halt. He had just picked it up and was about to take a closer look. The office phone rang. Pei Su's face was cold as he tapped to answer. The next second, the HR manager's voice echoed through the empty room. "Mr. Pei, since the project has ended, so, should Zhou Anxia's transfer start going through the process now?" 10. Pei Su stared at the thin divorce agreement. His expression was extremely dark. He slowly turned to look at me, the anger in his eyes deepening by the second, but he still held back his fury and said coldly into the phone, "You're in HR. Do you really need to ask me about something this small? Whoever wants to transfer Departments, you make the call. Once you've decided, just bring me the paperwork to sign. Do I need to say it again? All Pei-Su could see was that divorce agreement. He hadn't even really heard what the HR manager was saying. Before I even had a chance to breathe a sigh of relief, I heard the sound of paper tearing. Zhou Anxia, this isn't the first time you've mentioned divorce. He looked at me with an incredulous expression, his voice ice cold. I've gone over it, and isn't this all just because I took Xiaoyin's cup during that meeting that day? I just took it on reflex, that's all. Was it really worth you getting jealous and making a scene over it till now? I froze suddenly. I remembered how it had been countless times before. Clearly, it wasn't my fault, but Pei-Su always manages to criticize me in such a righteous, high and mighty way. I looked at Pei-Su quietly. I said nothing. After a long silence, he said in a patronizing tone, promising, I know my throat was bothering me those days. And you were worried about me, but honestly, I didn't mean anything by it. After 8 years together, it's just a habit. Taking the cup from Xiaoyin's hand, I promise it won't happen again, okay? I lowered my gaze. I was quietly pondering what approach I could take to get Pei-Su to sign the transfer document. If he hadn't just brought it up, I would have completely forgotten about this matter. The key point is, given the current situation, Pei-Su won't let me go easily when your thoughts are a tangled mess and you just can't sort them out. Pei-Su's cousin, who had been living abroad, came to visit. She strode into the office briskly, gift in hand, with an easy, carefree smile. I was swamped when you got married, so the first thing I did when I came back this time was to apologize to your wife. The woman raised an eyebrow, glanced at me, then fixed her gaze on Pei-Su and asked, what are you standing there for? Go get Xiaoyin. Quick, it's been 4 years since we last met. I wonder how much she's changed. 11. They've been married for over a year. I've seen this happen countless times before. Whenever that happened, Pei-Su couldn't be bothered to say any more than necessary. He just brushed it off with some perfunctory excuse. This time was no exception. He gave a careless smile and changed the subject. And you still have time to worry about other people. Words already spread all over Jingbei that your little uncle has lined up a whole bunch of matchmaking candidates for you and expects you to be married within a year. Looking at Pei-Su, calm and unruffled, I wasn't like I used to be. Whenever the chance came, I would stake my claim. Instead, I quietly stepped out, because just moments ago, I've come up with a brilliant way to get Pei-Su to sign it. 12. When I met with the HR manager, Xiaoyin had just gone to look for Pei-Su. Not long after, the news that Xiaoyin and Pei-Su's cousin had warmly embraced and exchanged pleasantries quickly spread throughout the company. The HR manager let out a sigh of relief and handed me the document. Thank goodness I didn't make the wrong choice. Otherwise, if Xiaoyin had been transferred out, TSK, the consequences would have been unthinkable. I took it with both hands. I smiled in agreement. Yeah. 13. Everyone's talking about it. Pei-Su and Xiaoyin are about to tie the knot. I no longer care. Just like last year, he took on the contract to renew the arrangement with the nanny housekeeper. Then he planned to find a suitable opportunity to slip the transfer papers in with it and have Pei-Su sign them together. What he hadn't expected was this, that the opportunity would come so soon. Somehow, someone accidentally revealed Pei-Su's marital status. He was actually married, and at the time they got their marriage certificate, Xiaoyin just happened to be on vacation abroad. The company's attitude shifted quickly. What had looked like a sweet school uniforms to wedding dress love story suddenly turned into Xiao Yin being branded the other woman. I took advantage of the chaos to go upstairs and look for Pei-Su. Xiaoyin was inside, sobbing. Everything was just what they assumed, from start to finish. I never said I was your wife, and now look at this. I didn't do a thing, and somehow I've become the target of everyone's criticism. Do you know how nasty they were? They called me a homewrecker outright, and even said that the project I just signed was something I'd slept my way into. Tears choking her voice, she looked at Pei-Su with her face flushed red, biting her lip in humiliation. Was it Zhou Anxia who deliberately spread the rumor? Ever since I joined the company, she's made it pretty clear she doesn't like me. Doing this now is just her way of pushing me out, isn't it? Fine, Pei-Su, I admit it. We've been together for 8 years, and ending up like this is my own fault. I'll go. Xiaoyin. Pei-Su looked calm as he grabbed her wrist, gently comforted her. There's always a way to work things out. Don't act rashly. You have no work experience. And you can't even keep yourself steady, where else could you go if you leave here? But I'm being talked about and cursed at all day long. Pei Su stood tall and imposing, looking at Xiaoyin, who was on the verge of breaking down. He gave a helpless smile. He turned Xiaoyin around by the shoulders and said in a coaxing voice, as if soothing a child, "As long as I prove I'm single now, those rumors will fall apart on their own. A divorce is just an act. In a while, once everyone has forgotten about this, I'll transfer you to a branch office, then find another chance to publicly announce my relationship with Xia. She's always wanted me to go public. If I use this to talk her into a fake divorce, Xia will definitely agree." At that moment, it felt like my heart skipped a beat, even though she had already prepared herself to leave. But when she heard that Pei Su would go to such lengths for Xiaoyin, her throat still tightened painfully with bitterness, yet the sadness vanished in an instant. I took a deep breath, clutching that stack of papers, pushed open that door. 14 These past few days, Pei Su has been helping Xiaoyin move, doing everything himself. He hadn't gone home, naturally. He had no idea that I had moved out. The moment our eyes met, a hint of impatience crossed his face. "What are you doing here?" Pei Su seemed to remember what Xiaoyin had just said. He sized me up with a wary look, his tone carrying a hint of warning. "Could it be that you're here to ask me to fire Xiaoyin?" I held back my anger. She feigned a casual air and shoved the stack of contracts into his arms. "These contracts all need to be renewed. You were also the one in charge last year, so, got it." Pei Su took them with a cool, indifferent expression, muttering under his breath as he wrote, "It's just a small matter. It's not like you can't handle it yourself. You had to come looking for me during work hours. Are you really that unable to be without me?" As he spoke, he let out a cold snort and handed me all the signed documents. "If you want to see me, just say so. Using an excuse like that is far too childish. Oh, and one more thing." Pei Su cleared his throat a little awkwardly, turned his head away, and didn't meet my eyes. His voice was hoarse as he said, "There's been some gossip at the company, and it's very bad for Xiaoyin. The only way to fix this is for us to fake a divorce, to prove she isn't the kind of woman people are making her out to be. Don't worry, once this blows over, I'll register our marriage right away, then find the right time to make our relationship public. Making our marriage public is your dream. You'll agree to this, won't you?" I lowered my eyes. My body trembled a little as I struggled to hide my emotions, but in Pei Su's eyes, that looked like sad tears. Suddenly, he couldn't bear it anymore. "Xia, don't be like this. At most, in a month, we can go get our marriage certificate again." I didn't dare waste any more time. I tossed out a quick "okay" and hurried downstairs, afraid I might change my mind. Pressed by Xiaoyin, Pei Su went to the Civil Affairs Bureau that very afternoon. At the time of parting, Pei Su looked at me. "Once I've handled the public backlash, I'll come home and stay with you." I stopped in my tracks but didn't turn around. "Pei Su, there's no chance for us anymore. Tonight, I'm leaving Jinbei tonight." 15 Watching Xia's retreating figure, Pei Su suddenly felt a strange sensation in his heart. She was very well behaved, but whenever it came to anything related to Xiaoyin, she was like a cat with its fur all puffed up. But now, it was different. She could actually accept it so calmly, accept that he was together with Xiaoyin for some reason beyond his control. Pei Su took a step forward, wanting to call Xia back. "Pei Su," Xiaoyin tugged at his sleeve and muttered somewhat reluctantly, "there's still a month left in the cooling off period. If you go after her now, wouldn't all your efforts be wasted? Then what am I supposed to do when the time comes?" Looking at Xiaoyin, who stood before him with red, tearful eyes, Pei Su let out a soft sigh. She tried to reassure herself, and Xia must have given in because she'd said that as long as he agreed to a fake divorce, she would make their marriage public. By then, once the public backlash had been dealt with, she'd find a chance to transfer Xiaoyin away. Everything was arranged, so he gave her what she wanted. He made sure everyone knew that Xia was his wife, and so Pei Su and Xiaoyin stood side by side, lingering where they were. They quietly watched Xia get into the car with a small bag on her back. They didn't dwell on it any further, watching Xiaoyin beside him gradually brighten up. Pei Su also let out a quiet sigh of relief. Afternoon, when Pei Su had found a moment to go downstairs and see whether Xiaoyin had been wronged, hearing Xiaoyin speaking arrogantly to the others, "Pei Su and I got together when we were 19, we'd been in a relationship for 8 years. If I hadn't gotten a little bored in the end and asked to break up, how would we ever have split up? Talking behind my back? How can you be so dense? Are you blind to how he treats me? If he really had a wife, why hasn't she come forward to say anything?" Surprisingly, the person Xiaoyin described as utterly vicious didn't even attempt to defend themselves. They simply exchanged a meaningful glance with each other before quietly dispersing. Pei Su stood frozen, In place, a long while later, he casually called out to the cleaning lady and asked, "Do Xiaoyin and I look like a couple?" My aunt found it baffling. "Isn't that right? Even if it isn't, we're only one step away from breaking the ice, aren't we?" Pei-su suddenly remembered that Xiaoyin had suspected Xiao of spreading the news because of the official announcement. He asked again, "Then what do you think of me and Xiao?" Her aunt burst out laughing as if she just heard the funniest joke in the world. Last time Xiaoying fainted, and Xia had meant well and wanted to give her some juice. You didn't say a word and rushed over to shove Anxia to the ground. Her calf was bleeding badly. I was the one who saw it and gave her a quick disinfecting treatment with iodine, and you say it was her. No one would believe that, not even a ghost. Anyone who saw that scene, even Anxia's enemies, would feel vindicated. The air seemed to freeze. Pei-su stood frozen in place. A number of bad suspicions began to surface in his mind. He only realized it after the fact. It seemed he really had done a lot of things wrong. 16. It was the second day after I arrived in Nanjing. I received a video from Xiaoyin. In the video, Pei-su had his eyes closed in obvious satisfaction, and his sexy chest was covered in vivid red scratch marks. It wasn't hard to tell what happened last night. I was quick on the draw and hit save before they could be recalled. I saw Xiaoyin keep typing. See, what doesn't belong to you will still slip away, no matter how tightly you hold on to it. Back then, I was the one who got tired of it, but after I broke up and went abroad to have some fun, I realized Pei-su was still the best match for me. I wanted to get back together with him, only to find out he'd actually already gotten married to you. But it doesn't matter, so long as I want him, Pei-su will still be mine. I didn't have time to reply. I just kept recording the screen, just in time. I spent yesterday carefully organizing some timelines. I was just worried there wasn't any solid evidence. I let out a breath of relief, replied to Xiaoyin. Oh, the other end kept showing typing. In the gap while waiting for her reply, I organized this video and chat history and added them into the PPT. Not until everything was sorted out. Xiaoyin never replied again. I figured that was probably enough. The PPT was sent to all the shareholders. 17. It seemed that Pei-su didn't know that Xiaoyin had messaged me. When he called and asked me to come to the office, he sounded exhausted. "And Xia, you've been really good this time. How about I reward you by letting you go out and have some fun? I skipped work to be with you." I pushed the door open and stepped into the new office, letting out a soft "HM, you and Xiaoyin aren't together." Maybe it was just my imagination. Pei-su's breathing grew a little heavier as he explained cautiously, "You already know about the dinner with Xiaoyin last night, right?" It was nothing. She'd been in a terrible mood because of the backlash, crying all the time, so we just asked a few old friends out for dinner. It ran too late, so you slept together. I heard myself say in an unnervingly calm voice, "Want me to send you the video in a bit?" Pei-su said nothing. As I walked, I greeted my new colleagues and, in passing, said to Pei-su, "And besides, we're already in the mandatory cooling off period for divorce, remember? You and I went to the civil affairs office together and filled out the application. In other words, you don't need to report to me what you do, including who you love." The next second, it was the sound of a cup shattering mixed in with Pei-su's low curses. I was getting a little irritated. Just as I was about to hang up, I heard Pei-su let out a long breath and say calmly, "But before this, I was with Xiaoyin for 8 years. You know, we had sex, it just happened again, that's all. You can't condemn me for that." "Fine, even if I was wrong, come up here and find me right now. I'll apologize to you face to face." Right now, the co-workers were making small talk in the break room. They were speaking in the Nanjing dialect. Pei-su on the other end of the phone froze for a moment, then asked in a trembling voice, "Where did you go?" "Not in the office." I listened quietly as he hurried down the stairs in a panic. He angrily confronted the HR manager again. "Why didn't Zhou Anxia come to work? Transferred out. Who approved that? The final step in the process should have been my signature. Didn't you know that?" I pinched the bridge of my nose. I couldn't bear to hear him keep questioning the manager. He said helplessly, reminding him, "You signed it yourself." "Pei-su, it's in that stack of documents." 18. In the end, I reminded Pei-su it was time to pick up the divorce certificate. He went reluctantly, all the while saying he would win me back, but I know he won't have the energy for that anymore. 19. In his youth, Pei-su's father was a well-known dashing playboy in Jingbei. He never married in his life, yet he had 4 sons and 3 daughters. Pei-su was just one of them, that was all. So the shareholders quickly reached a decision and prepared to push Pei-su out. Let someone else take this seat. After all, Peisu was nowhere near as useful as a steady rise in the company's stock price. When I received the news, I was chatting with the former HR manager in a spacious, well-lit office. He said with genuine feeling, "I knew getting transferred to Nanjing was a promotion, but nobody wanted to go. Everyone wants to stay in Jingbei and build their careers there, but you're the one who gets it. Living comfortably matters most." Before I could say anything, he said in a gossipy, mysterious tone, "I have no idea what Peisu did, but he was voted out by the board of directors. The current boss is the Pei family's youngest daughter. She's decisive, ruthless, and incredibly forceful. Guess who's going to have the hardest time once she's in charge?" I smiled in understanding. Not a word. Who else could it be? Of course, it was Xiaoyin, the one who got into the company through less than official channels. As for how miserable her life is now, I didn't listen anymore. That was all in the past. None of it had anything to do with me. As for me now, I've got a huge fortune in the bank. I only work to find meaning in life. When the day comes that I feel worn out, I might just quit my job and travel the world. Life is so beautiful. Until that day, when I got off work, ready to head out for a nice meal, I saw the one person who shouldn't have been there. Downstairs, 20, Peisu seemed to have lost weight, standing in the wind. He looked far more haggard and disheveled. He looked at me in disbelief. After a long silence, he finally spoke in a hoarse voice, enunciating every word. "Xia, come home with me." Peisu strode forward and tried to grab my arm, speaking rapidly. "It's okay. I can start over. Just come by then." "Peisu, have you lost your mind?" I shook off his hand in disgust and said coldly, "You personally signed the transfer paperwork. They even stamped it with your personal seal. If you don't believe me, go look it up." But I thought it was only. Peisu looked deeply disappointed by my reaction. His eyes turned red. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." He finally panicked. "You can't do this to me. I didn't do anything wrong." "Yes, you didn't do anything wrong." As I looked back on the past, I still decided to tear those scars open. "You we're just making choice after choice between me and Xiaoyin, and every single time, you picked her. That's all. You were just so protective of her that you'd rather hurt me than let her feel even slightly wronged. That's all. You were just with me, yet time and again, you subconsciously thought of her. That's all." I watched Peisu's face grow increasingly ugly, a heartfelt question. If that was the case, then why did you chase me so relentlessly and treat me so well? Why were you so desperate to have a home, and then never come back? Do you know how many times I genuinely thought it was my fault? But that's not it. I wasn't wrong. The love I once thought I had was never truly pure. 21. Peisu didn't leave willingly. He and his siblings had always been at odds. At this moment, they were only focused on pressing their advantage, adding fuel to the fire while Father Pei had turned against Peisu. I even found the right moment to reach out to Father Pei. "My request is very simple. I just hope the divorce can go through smoothly. As for that PPT that could work against your new company's IPO, I'll make sure it disappears completely." Pei's father had been proud all his life. He liked to think he'd been through countless affairs without ever getting entangled. He had kept every one of those women under control and settled them nicely. Not a single one had ever caused a scene or brought it out into the open. Peisu was the first son who ever made him feel ashamed, so they said, when he heard someone mocking Father Pei for having such a hopeless romantic for a son. The usually proud Father Pei actually got into a fight with someone. He immediately issued a dead serious order. No one was ever to make use of Peisu again, and he must never be given another chance to stage a comeback. Later on, it was about old man Pei suddenly suffering a cerebral hemorrhage, and his children tearing each other apart to seize control. None of that had anything to do with me. All I knew was, on the day we got our marriage certificate, Peisu arrived on time. 22. I was reminded of 2 years ago. Peisu was the same back then. He was already standing here waiting for me before I even arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Him, back then, in a sharp suit, brimming with confidence and vigor, and now, Peisu, it was really rather undignified. He used to be reserved and refined, but now he was wearing loose, worn-out clothes, sporting stubble, with his unkempt hair all disheveled. Ever since my dad fell ill, this whole family fell apart completely. Or maybe this family never truly existed in the first place. I'd already been stripped of my power, and now even my house and car had been taken by those guys. I silently took off the luxury item I was wearing and tucked it into my pocket. Then I hid the one-of-a-kind bag he had once bought at a sky-high auction behind my back. He went on to say, "I was always too proud. I thought I could have it all so easily, and never imagined I would one day lose it. That includes you, and Xia, only after you We're gone. Did I realize how much I hurt you by turning a blind eye to Chaoyin's line crossing? I looked at him, my eyes rimmed red. Pei Su was still about to pour out his true feelings. I took a step back. I cut him off coldly. You're not about to say you only realized you loved me after losing me, are you? Under Pei Su's stunned gaze, I went on. Actually, Chaoyin wasn't wrong. You're just being driven by novelty. You got bored of her after 8 years together, and even if you stayed with me, one day you'd get tired of my presence too. You can't let go right now only because you're too damn cheap. What you always want is the thing you never got. The moment the word cheap left his mouth, Pei Su's body visibly bent forward. He lowered his eyes, as if he no longer wanted to hear it, and strode quickly into the Civil Affairs Bureau. Let's go. I'll give you your freedom. 23. Got the divorce certificate. Pei Su stood in the blazing sun, staring at me in a daze. Once I've saved enough for a plane ticket to Nanjing, I'll come see you. We'll meet again, won't we? I said nothing, and I didn't tell him either. Over the past year, feeling guilty, he's already given me enough money. As long as I don't spend it recklessly, it'll be enough for me to live comfortably for the rest of my life. So I've already quit my job. I'm getting ready to leave Nanjing, head to a new city from here on out. The road stretches far beneath the sky. As for Pei Su, we won't meet again this time. I think I will. Perhaps freedom is the better choice after all. The end.